Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is an international call. It's our usual Saturday training call. As usual, we're going to be doing something different as we try and do something different every single week. And this is, again, something that is very close to my heart. It's all about having a wealth mindset, understanding and having the correct relationship with making money, because it is remarkable the number of people that sabotage themselves by having a negative mindset when it comes to making money, certainly making a lot of money. So Ray is going to be doing the training today. So again, for those of you who don't know who Ray is a multi-level businessman. He has both tremendous success in traditional business. He runs a very successful software company. He's also been very successful in network marketing. He's built massive teams over the years. He's been the #1 income earner with 3 businesses over a 37-year career. Brings obviously a wealth of experience to the table. Interestingly, when he joined CFX, he started off from scratch, which I guess in a way is very similar to myself. He didn't bring a team of people with him. He's actually the #1 income earner with another business, but he has a very good relationship with the owners of that company and did not want to damage that in any way, so didn't cross pitch. He basically left that business alone and literally started from scratch, and again, achieving remarkable things. And one of the key things with Ray is his activity levels are through the roof. He's just on it. I'm often talking to him late at night and first thing in the morning, and he's on it all the time. And those of you that are in his team will know he's a bit of a dynamo, and that's why he's achieving the success he's achieving. It's because he is constantly activity. And the stats on his business are very impressive. So remember, from a standing start, not bringing people from his existing team across, he went to executive in 24 days. He went to manager in just 3 months, and he's literally just gone director after 6.5 months. And he's such a good example of, if you put in that consistent effort, it's amazing. You start off with 1s and 2s and you can build up, and before you know it, you're up through the ranks. He's got over 1,400 people in his team now in 37 countries. So once again, he's proving that it doesn't matter what your background is or anything else. If you're starting off from scratch, you can still build a business very quickly with CFX. So I'll pass you over to Ray.
Thank you for that very kind introduction, Richard. That's much appreciated. Hello, everyone. It's great to be with you again on Saturday. We love the Saturday trainings. And as Richard said, today I want to kind of bring a little bit of wealth mentality to you. Wealth mentality comes in many forms. One of the things that I do as a leader in this industry is I educate myself and I read a lot of books. I don't actually read them. I actually listen to them on Audible. My Audible account, my Audible library is huge. And there are some books that I read again and again and again. And there are some books that I've read 30 or 40 times and listened to 30 or 40 times, and I still get value from those things. And one of the things about network marketing is a lot of people come into network marketing from the ordinary workplace, from a day job or from running a small business, and they have 2 problems generally, I find. One is that they don't have the belief factor or understanding that they can earn tens of thousands of dollars or even hundreds of thousands of dollars or even millions of dollars, and so that creates a problem in their mindset. But the second thing also is they have a lack of financial education, and there are many forms of education, and financial education is one of them. And I really kind of want to focus a little bit on why most people don't understand the wealth mindset. And where I want to start is with this statement, that it's generally accepted amongst financial strategists and educators that there are simply 3 pillars of wealth. And those 3 pillars are as follows. The first pillar is education. In other words, learning about finance and money. Cashfx is a financial business. We're in a money business, but a lot of people don't educate themselves about wealth. So The first pillar of wealth is education. The second pillar of wealth is creation. In other words, the creation of wealth. And I'm going to say at this point, we're talking about wealth here. Wealth and income are two completely different things. If you think income is wealth and wealth is income, you haven't understood the first pillar. So you need to go back to that first pillar and start learning the difference between income and wealth. They are two completely different things. And then the third stage of the third pillar of wealth is preservation of wealth. Okay. In other words, you've learned how to create wealth, you've earned that wealth, and now you need to keep it. These are the three pillars of wealth. I learned these three pillars about 30 years ago. The first network marketing company that I got to become the number one earner within, I was a very young man and I earned a lot of money, but because I had no financial education and because I had no understanding of how to preserve my wealth, I earned a massive amount of money, but I spent more than I earned. How that was possible, now that I think about it, I don't know, but I spent an inordinate amount of money because I didn't understand the value of my wealth or how to keep it, because I didn't understand the three pillars of wealth. So education, creation, and preservation. Learn, earn, and keep. These are the three pillars of wealth. Now, if you're in network marketing and you don't know who this man is, you need to start reading. This man is Robert Kiyosaki, and Robert says academic qualifications are important, and so is financial education. But the problem is that whilst they're both important, schools are mainly forgetting one of them. And I can let you understand or guess which one of those things that schools are forgetting. Academic qualifications are important, financial education is important, but the problem is schools don't teach financial education. And my father once said to me, show me a millionaire school teacher and I'll listen to him and I'll put you in his class. I've never met a millionaire school teacher because, as Robert Kiyosaki says, teachers teach about subjects they don't practice, and the government dictates the curriculum, and the government dictates that schools don't teach people about money and wealth and becoming rich. Robert does a great video called Keep Them Poor. You really should watch it. Financial freedom is both an emotional and an educational process. You have to learn the educational side of it, but you have to learn the emotions that go with it. We often hear from Richard about 𝙏𝙗𝙖𝙑 𝙠 and how he trades for us in Cashfx and how he trades without emotion. Well, trading emotionlessly is actually an emotion. And because he's learned both the emotional and educational sides of the craft of Forex trading, that's what makes Edwin a world-class trader. And you know, both Huascar and Edwin and all the boys in Cashfx have massive financial education under their belt. So Robert says your mind is your greatest asset. Be very, very careful what you put into it. I'm very, very careful about what I put into my mind. If any of you go and look at my Facebook profile, you'll notice there is nothing negative on my Facebook profile. There's nothing negative on my LinkedIn profile, because I understand that people will come and look at those things. And if I'm blathering on about COVID-19 and this, that, and then ranting at the world, people don't want to hear that. But if I talk about success and positivity and you know, financial well-being and the success of my team, that's attractive to people. So that's all I ever talk about. And I put some personal touches in there now and again, just to keep it human and social. It's not all business, but I never speak about anything. So I don't bring race, religion, politics, creed, whatever into my Facebook profile, into my public spaces. And if you look at any successful person, they do exactly the same thing. They will only talk about success, because you know what comes out of your mind is a product of what goes into your mind. And if your mind is always negative, 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 you're going to be a negative person. And if your mind is always positive, 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 you're going to be a positive person. Now, I want to introduce you to a book that has changed my life. And this book, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this today, this book changed my life. This is the book that set me on the path to financial success. And if you only ever read one book on wealth in your life, make damn sure it's this book, The Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. I started listening to Robert about 30 years ago. And I remember I bought a CD, remember those? I bought a CD, I played it in my car, and within 15 minutes, I was hit by 5 or 6 bolts of lightning from what he was telling me. And he changed my life, and he's changed the life of many, many, many other people. And this book, The Cash Flow Quadrant, is a blueprint. It's a blueprint on how to get wealthy and how to change your financial education to begin to understand the 3 pillars of wealth and how to position yourself to build on those 3 pillars. So if you never read any other book in your life, this is the book. In fact, I listen to this book maybe once or twice a year. I listened to this book in the summer, and I was driving down the road, and Robert said something, and I've heard it hundreds of times before because I've read this book hundreds of times, listened to this book hundreds of times. And Robert said something, and it was so important that I pulled the car over because I needed to go back and listen to it again as to what he said, because I can rewind it on my Audible on my phone and stream it through my car. So I pulled over and I wound it back and I listened again. I won't go into what he said here because this is not the time or the place, but it was so powerful because I hadn't understood the sort of 100 times that I'd heard it before. So I'm still picking stuff up from this book even now, even though I've read this book hundreds of times. Okay. You know, I always say that to understand a book fully, you must read it 10 times to understand the full nature of the book. So let's talk about the cash flow quadrant, because the cash flow quadrant breaks down the 4 stages of income generation. And the 4 stages are as follows. It fundamentally talks about 4 groups of people. And the first group is employees. Employees are people who sell their time for money. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being an employee if that's where you are currently. Please don't think I'm, doing you down, but I'm not. I'm just merely stating the fact that an employee is somebody who sells their time for money. Now, if you've never thought about it that way and you're not happy about that, then go and change the picture. Okay, and Cashfx can help you do that, and also reading books like Cash Flow Quadrant. And this what I'm showing you now is the Cash Flow Quadrant. This is how it works. The second type of person on the quadrant is the self-employed person. Okay, and self-employed people, they sell their time for money. I've got a friend of mine who recently, last year before COVID kicked in, spent £58,000 on a franchise. Okay. Now he before he had the franchise, he actually had quite a good job in the city, and he was getting paid over £100,000 a year for his job in the city. Okay. And he had to get on the train every day and go to London, yada yada yada. So then he got out of that. He bought a franchise for £58,000. He's now working more hours in his franchise and earning less money. So he's still selling his time for money. And the thing is, if either of these group of people stop, the question is, how long is it before the money runs out? And the reason is that if you have to go into your office or your business every day, then you don't have a business. You have a job. Why? Well, you keep your job, but your business will keep you. As many of you know, I've got a software business. I've got a recording studio business. I don't have to go into the offices of those business every day. In fact, I try and stay out of there because all I ever do when I go in there is create chaos because that's my nature. I don't have to go into those businesses to know that they're going to open their doors today and run today, because I don't have a job, I have a business, and the business keeps me. And that's what happens when you have a Cashfx business. You build a Cashfx business, it keeps you. You don't actually have to spend your time every day building it. You have to do that for a little time, but then once you've built it, you've built it. That's the thing about the left side of the quadrant. If you've got a business where you have to go into every day, you've got a job, not a business. Now, on the right side of the quadrant, we have business owners. Well, what are business owners? Aren't they self-employed people? Well, yes, technically they are, but they've got a different mentality to it. A business owner understands time duplication. In other words, leverage. I'm a business owner. So what I have in my business, my traditional business, is I look for people on the left side of the quadrant. So I have some people who work for me as full-time employees, and they sell their time to me in exchange for an agreed amount of money every hour. Okay. And I also have some self-employed people working for me full time, and they too sell their time to me for money. Okay. I have some contractors working for me in the company. Why do I pay those people for their time? Because number one, the business generates the money. So I convert some of that money into leverage. What do I mean by that? Well, I buy the time that the employees and the self-employed people are willing to sell to me so that I don't have to be in the office doing that work. They can do that work, which means that I can then focus my time and attention on growing the business. Leverage is the key thing when you're a business owner. So in CFX, how do you leverage? Well, you build a team, because that people will put their time and effort into CFX, and that leverages you. Okay, it leverages them too. It's a benefit to them, but it leverages you. And then the final type of person on the cash flow quadrant is the investor. Well, what is an investor? Some of you may have seen the program Dragon's Den, or Shark Tank as they call it in America. Those guys are investors. What they're doing is they're investing their money into business owners who are leveraging the time of employees, and they get a return for that money. So those are the four types of people on the cash flow quadrant: employees, self-employed, business owners, and investors. Now, it's an interesting thing that 95% of the population fall into the left side of the quadrant. So employees and self-employees make up 95% of the population, the working population. The problem with that is that 95% of the population only generates 5% of the wealth. I'll just let that sink in. 95% of the working population generates only 5% of the wealth. Whereas 5% of the population are business owners and investors, but they generate 95% of the wealth. Where do you think the money comes from to pay the 95% of the population? Well, it comes from the 5% of the population that own businesses and are investors. So the question of this quadrant, do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the side of the quadrant where you are or self-employed, or of the 5% making 95% of the money? By being involved in Cashfx, you're already positioning yourself on the right side of the quadrant. It might also be true that at the same time, you're also in the left side of the quadrant if you're just starting out. But as time goes on, you will move away from the left side of the quadrant into the right side of the quadrant. And that's exactly where you want to be. I'm going to demonstrate the quadrant to you in a much simpler fashion. Imagine this. Imagine you had 100 people. This is how it would translate. 95 people out of that 100 people would be sharing the crumbs on a plate. The crumbs represent money. 95 people would be sharing the crumbs on a plate. The other 5 people would have more money and food than they know what to do with. They'd have a banquet. And that is the reality of the cash flow quadrant. The 95% over here are living on 5% of the money. The 5% over here are living on 95% of the money. They have abundance because they create that money. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So that gives you a simple illustration and I think a very powerful illustration. Okay, do you want to be on the left side of the quadrant, or do you want to be on the right side? Do you want to be in the 95% or the 5%? Cashfx, if you talk to business owners and investors, they talk about vehicles, financial vehicles. Cashfx is a financial vehicle, and it is a vehicle that will make you a business owner and an investor in one swoop, and it will bring you from the left side of the quadrant to the right side of the quadrant, okay, if you apply the correct time and energy to it. Now, this is Phil Collins. Phil's a rock star. That's his day job, okay? Somebody once interviewed Phil and said, "Hey, Phil, exactly how much money do you have in total then, Phil?" And Phil's answer was interesting. He said, "Yeah, I don't know. That's what accountants are for." So Phil Collins, rock star, not great at maths. My question to you is this. Do you think he's in the 95% or the 5%? Do you think he's in that percentage of people that have actually got so much money they don't know how much they've got, and they have to employ accountants to tell them how much money they've got and how little tax they've got to pay? because that's one of the benefits of having a lot of money. You know, one of the questions I get asked a lot in my team is, you know, do I have to declare my income as tax? Well, fundamentally, if you draw the money out of Cashfx and put it into your bank account, yes, you do. However, not one person has come to me and says, I know I'm going to be wealthy soon in Cashfx. What do you think the best tax mitigation strategies are for me to reduce the amount of tax I pay? That's a wealth mindset. That's somebody who understands the 3 pillars of wealth. That's somebody who understands where their Cashfx business is going to take them, because there are perfectly legitimate ways to reduce the amount of tax you pay. Good financial advice will help you do that. But Phil Collins doesn't know how much money he's got. He's got accountants for that, because he's in the 5% who are just generating the wealth. He does what he does. He earns the royalties from his music and he gets paid. And what I want to talk about now, you know, Phil is actually 69 years old at the moment. And, you know, we in England, we retire at 65, allegedly. We're just going to look at the financial status of most people, you know, age 65. Let's talk about the people on the left side of the quadrant first. I'm going to tell you that at age 65, 54% of people are flat broke. They're going to rely for the next 25, 30 years on a state pension until they die. And the state is going to reduce that and reduce that and reduce that and reduce that. All over the world, we hear of governments taking money away from pensions. Richard and I, both, we hate pensions. I don't have a pension. Richard doesn't have a pension. I think pensions are the worst thing on the planet. And if you build a Cashfx business, you'll never need one. But 54% of people are flat broke of the 95%. The other 5% in that group are working. And they're working the 40-40-40 plan. And I don't know if you know what the 40-40-40 plan is, but it's this. The 40-40-40 plan is where you go to work for 40 years of your life for somebody else to make them rich. And you do that for 40 hours a week for 40 years of your life. And then you retire, and the government and the pension companies give you 40% of what you thought you were going to get, because they have this little trick up their sleeve and they go, oh, inflation's reduced it. They love inflation. It's the greatest excuse for robbing your pensions that ever existed. So 5% out of that group are working, and the other 36% are dead. They're gone. They died young. They died before their time because they didn't have enough money to pay for the right healthcare, private healthcare, good food. You look around at the 95%, they're eating junk food. They're not taking care of themselves, all that stuff. And these are what we call NAWs. I'm going to explain these acronyms in a minute, but this is what we call an NAW. On the other side of the quadrant, in the 5%, at 65, 4% out of 100% are financially independent in that sector. They're financially independent. What does that mean? What does financial independence mean? It means they can get up every morning and know that they're going to have more money in the bank by the end of the day than when they got up. That's financial independence. Okay. And the other 1% are absolutely wealthy beyond measure. The Phil Collinses of this world. Phil's worth about 250 million pounds. It's about $300 million, something like that. So they're wealthy. And the 4% are what we call AAWs. And the 1% are what we call PAWs. So we've got NORs, ORs, and PAWs. So I'm just going to explain what they are. So the NAWs, the NORs, are the non-achievers of wealth. These are the people that you go up to them and you go, hey, I've got this great thing called Cashfx. It can make you some money. And they go, no, it's not for me. That's why I call them NORs. They're the non-achievers of wealth. Over here in the 4%, the AAWs are the active achievers of wealth. All of you that have taken a decision to open and begin and work a Cashfx business, you are active achievers of wealth if you take the actions every day to build your business. Richard is an active achiever of wealth. I like to think that I'm an active achiever of wealth. Justin, John Kinnear, Martin Aremo, Torkel, all these guys, we're all active achievers of wealth. And the only place we're going to end up, if we keep doing what we're doing, is we will end up in the 1% of PAWs. And these are the prodigious achievers of wealth. The word prodigious means abundant, massive achievers of wealth. Okay. So that's what 𝙏𝙝𝙖𝙣𝙠 𝙔𝙤𝙪 are. Okay. And as I said to you, the 𝙏𝙝s are the guys that you show them a Cashfx business, they go, no, it's not for me. The 4% of the people you show a Cashfx business and they go, oh, okay. And then they become the PAWs, the pawns. So you've got to decide where you want to be. And the reason that the 95% are non-achievers of wealth is because they immerse themselves in a consumer society. What does that mean? Well, a consumer society is based upon waste, absolute waste. I'm going to come on to that in a moment. Whereas on the other side of the spectrum, the wealth side is based on the creation of wealth and assets. So the 95% waste their money, the 5% create their money. The 95% are in consumerism and the 5% are in creationism. So the 95% who exchange their time for money, well, what do they do with their money? Okay, because they're certainly not doing with their money what the 5% are doing. Well, I'm here to tell you what they do is they go out and get a mortgage and they buy a house, and then they go and get loans and buy cars, and then because they don't really have much money left at the end of the month, they eat junk food, and they then live week to week and month to month on credit cards. And I'm just going to talk about those first four screens for a moment. You know, I have many friends who've, and I've got nothing against people with a mortgage, but I've got many friends who have bought a house, and they go, oh yeah, I bought my own house. And I go, really? Did you have a mortgage? And they go, yeah. I said, well, you don't have a house, you have a debt. They go, no, I bought my house. I go, okay, well, stop paying the mortgage and see how long it remains your house. That usually shuts them up. And then I have other people come up to me and say, oh, look at my new car. And I go, that's nice. How did you pay for that? And they go, oh, I got a loan. Oh, so it's not your car then? Oh, yeah, it's mine. I'm driving it. No. Stop paying the loan. See how fast it remains your car. You see, people have this strange view that they own things that they haven't paid for. That's consumerism. That's consumer society. And because they're feeding mortgages and loans, they don't have time to go and buy the right kind of foodstuffs to put in their fridge. My wife and I, we're vegan. We shop at local farm shops, fresh vegetables, fresh fruit. We try and eat good stuff. We don't eat junk food. We don't don't go to McDonald's, Domino's, Nando's. I've never been in a Nando's. Most people that know me know that I won't eat in a chain restaurant. Pizza Hut I haven't had for years. Press a manger, I don't know what that is. McDonald's, I haven't had a McDonald's for 6 or 7 years. We just don't eat that stuff, okay? Because we try and eat properly, because we spend more money on food, because we've got more money left over, because we don't have debt in our household. I have no credit cards, no mortgages, no debt, okay? And so because people are, struggling to make ends meet because they've got a job, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing to have a job because they're employees, they're selling their time for money, and so they live on the credit cards, particularly at Christmas, which is coming. People just bang up the credit cards at Christmas, and they don't see that it's debt. And because they're going out to work 40 hours a week on the 40-40 plan, they come home, they eat junk food, they sit in front of the television, and they don't do anything with their lives. They just don't. So they're not active achievers, they're non-achievers of wealth. And they do this cycle for 40 years. And they don't see that there's anything wrong with it. And it starts young because, the youth of today, they sit in front of video games for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and they think this is normal. It's not. When I was a kid, and I'm not saying, I used to go and play football. I used to go skateboarding. I used to go out on my bike. I used to go and play with my friends outside. Even if it was raining, we'd still go outside and play. We didn't have video games back then, And so, and I know that makes me sound like an old bugger, but I'm getting there. So these people, all they ever do in their life is create debt through consumerism. That's all they do. However, on the other side of the spectrum, people like you who are in Cashfx and people like me, what we do is we try and create money. We create money by building our Cashfx business, and we create Bitcoin. Myself, I buy gold and silver, and I don't watch television. It's very rare that I watch television. If I'm going to watch television, I'll watch something interesting on Netflix that interests me, a documentary on Gaia or something like that. I get most of my visual pleasure, for want of a better phrase, from YouTube. I watch educational videos on YouTube. I watch people, in fact, this morning I watched a great video by Arnold Schwarzenegger on why 2% only make it and the other 98% fail. I watch people like Peter Schaefer, Robert Kiyosaki, Max Steingart, all those guys. I watch people, Mike Maloney. I listen to people who talk about how to build wealth. I immerse myself in YouTube. YouTube is the finest education tool on the planet. And again, like most things, you can either use YouTube in a bad way and just watch stupid cat videos, or you can use YouTube in a good way and go and find some, there's some amazing content on YouTube. I'm going to tell you a statistic about YouTube that you don't know. The statistic is that every second of the day, right now, here in 2020, there are 72 hours of educational content being uploaded to YouTube. I'll just let that sink in. Every second of the day, there are 72 hours worth of educational content being uploaded to YouTube. There you go, another 72 hours worth of educational content. There's another 72 hours worth. There's another 72 hours worth. You're never going to run out of things to watch on YouTube. And so go and find the stuff that's going to educate you to the 3 pillars of wealth. And so the people on this side of the quadrant, instead of creating debt, they create assets. And that's what I've done in my life. I create assets. I have a lot of gold and silver. I have a gold and silver business. I have property assets, and I have Bitcoin assets, and I've got collectible assets. I collect art and cars and guitars. And I invest in those things. And these things give me pleasure as objects, but also they are investable. Okay. So that's the difference between the 95% and the 5%. The 95% create debt. Look at your life, look around your life and go, have I got a mortgage? Is there a way that I can reduce that mortgage or even get rid of it? A lot of people don't know that the word mortgage comes from 2 French words. The word mort, which means death, and an old French word called 𝙏𝙝𝙖𝙣, which means an instrument of death, which is where we get the word ligature from. Okay, so the word mortgage means an instrument of death because it'll kill you. Okay, so if you can buy a house for cash, buy a house for cash, because then you truly own the house. Until then, if you've got a mortgage, the bank owns it. If you've got a car with a loan, the loan company owns it. If you've got credit card debt, it means that the credit card companies own your money that you're earning because you've got to give it to them. All right. And as somebody once said, there's only 2, Winston Churchill, I think he said, there's only 2 things that are certain in life: death and taxes. Okay. So don't be a person that creates debt and lives in a consumer society. Be one of the 5% who creates assets and wealth and educates themselves as to wealth. And the reason I'm saying this is because Cashfx is a good business. In fact, in my view, it's the best business I've ever seen in my life. But it's a good business. What is a good business? Well, Cashfx is a get out of debt business. Okay. If you apply yourself correctly in your Cashfx business, you will get out of debt. But it's not just about building your Cashfx business. It's about having that asset building mentality. Reduce your debts. Don't increase your debts. Okay. Think about how you can reduce the outgoings or kill off the debts. There's a very, very good method in fact, one of my team members, Jamie, has published a book called Take Control of Your Financial Future. And in it, he describes the snowball method of reducing your debt. Okay. And it's a great method. I might even get him on one day to talk about it, because that's part of the 3 pillars of wealth. You know, learning how to reduce your debts and increase your income is going to put you in a much better financial position. Cashfx can substantially increase your income, but if you don't apply the other side of that coin to reducing your debts, all you're going to be doing is using your Cashfx money to feed your debts. What you want to do is get rid of the debts, get them out of your life so that you don't owe any money to anything. So you're not beholden to anyone, and you're not getting up every month thinking, how am I going to pay this? Cashfx is a get out of debt business. Okay. It will generate the income you need to get you out of debt so that you don't have to incur more debt. And Cashfx, let's be honest, it's a network marketing business. And I just want to briefly talk about this, because one of the things that I discovered in the course of listening to people who were wealthy, listening to people who were in the 5%, was that a lot of them were massive fans of network marketing, or had even been involved in network marketing at one point in their career. And Warren Buffett, who's the world's greatest investor and worth over $1 billion, he's a billionaire, says about network marketing, it was one of the best investments he ever made. It was one of the best investments he ever made. That's Warren Buffett. Now, what I want to show you next is one of the best things I ever saw. There's a video, the video of this is actually on the YouTube somewhere. And love him or hate him, Donald Trump's the Marmite man of the moment. You either love him or you hate him. I don't have a preference either way. So I'm not going to get into the politics. However, one thing you cannot take away from Donald Trump is the man is a billionaire. So is he in the 1% of the wealthy, or is he in the 95%? Regardless of what you think of his politics, you set that aside for a moment. The man is a billionaire. A billionaire. And he went, this is Dave Letterman, and Donald Trump was once invited onto the Letterman show, which is a live show that goes out from New York. And this was some years ago. And David Letterman said to him, hey, Donald, what would you do if you lost everything and had to start over from scratch? And Donald said, what I would probably do is I would find a good network marketing company and get to work. And at this point, the audience started shouting and booing. Network marketing. And the answer that Trump gave floored me. It's the best answer to this I've ever heard. And he said this: that's why I'm sitting up here and you're all sitting out there. And he silenced the audience with that. And it's true. The reason that Donald Trump is successful is because way back in his career, he has dabbled with network marketing. He's been in network marketing. Even to the point where Robert Kiyosaki and Donald Trump wrote a book, which I've read, called Why We Recommend Network Marketing. It's a book you should read. Okay. There's a saying in network marketing, leaders are readers. If you're not reading books and expanding your knowledge about financial education, how to learn about wealth, how to create wealth, how to preserve it, you won't ever become a leader. You won't ever to be able to pass knowledge on. A lot of people say, how do you come up with these subjects? How do you come up with these presentations, Ray? It's because I've read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books, and I've listened to thousands of audio books, and I've listened to watched hundreds and thousands of videos about this subject. I've immersed myself in it. I've educated myself to create wealth and preserve it. Okay. And this is a fabulous, fabulous book as to why we recommend network marketing. And what you'll get out of this book is when somebody said, oh, it's one of those pyramids, or it's one of those Ponzi's, or, is it network marketing? This book will actually give you some of the answers to tell to those people. Okay. In fact, I say to a lot of people, when people say to me, oh, it's one of those pyramid things, I say to them, I actually pause for a moment and I say to them, that's very interesting what you're saying there. Will you do me a favor? Will you explain to me, if you would, what a pyramid scheme is? And then I'll go back to the company. I'll see if it's one of those. Would you do that for me? And you'll find that 99% of the people you respond to like that will start to back away, because most people bandy these terms around. They haven't got a clue what they're talking about. And the minute you put them on the spot and say, okay, well, I'm agreeing, explain that to me and I'll see if it's one of those, they start to run, because you've cornered them and you've exposed their lack of knowledge. And that's what a lot of people do, is they use terms they've heard, you know, sound bites or sensationalized terms. They don't understand them. They haven't got a clue. And it's very true in our industry that people use those terms to you know, to not look at your business. And this book, Why We Recommend Network Marketing, will give you a lot of clues and answers to that. I'm just going to mention 2 other books while I'm here. Again, you know, look at these 2 guys, very, very wealthy guys, billionaire, multi-millionaire. Okay. And Kiyosaki, Why You Want to Be Rich, is a great book. But the book that I love most by these 3 guys, of these 2 guys, is The Midas Touch. Okay. Why Some Entrepreneurs Get Rich and Why Most Don't. That's a book that I read again and again and again, because the Midas Touch, you know, a lot of people look at my life and they go, you know, why is it everything you touch turns to gold? I'm not saying that to be big-headed, but it's just because I've read this book. I understand what it is to have the Midas touch in entrepreneurship, because I've read this book, and I continue to read it, because it's written by 2 people who are just obscenely wealthy. You know, these are the teachers that I want to learn from. These are the millionaire teachers that I never had at school. Okay. So my question to you going forward is, do you think Robert Kiyosaki understands and applies the principles of the 3 pillars of wealth? How to learn, earn, and keep your wealth? Yes, of course he does. Do you think that Warren Buffett understands and applies the 3 pillars of wealth? Of course he does. Do you think that Donald Trump, regardless of what you think about his politics, do you think that he understands and applies the 3 principles of wealth? Yeah, of course he does, without a doubt. So you have to decide which one of these on the cash flow quadrant you're going to be. You have to make that decision as to whether you're going to be in the 95% of the population who are going to sell their time for money and generate 5% of the wealth and look for the crumbs off the plate, or you may need to make a decision. And if you're in Cashfx, you've already started to make that decision, but now you need to put your plan into action, because making a decision is not enough. Last week, we spoke about the frog on a log. You can decide to do something, but unless you actually take action, it'll never happen. So if you're going to become 5% of the population, the business owners and the investors generating 95% of the wealth, take action, because making a decision isn't enough. Take action. Do the things every day that you have to do. Educate yourself, learn, create the wealth, earn it, and then learn to keep it, how to make it work for you so that you never have to work again. Okay. And I'm going to reiterate, please, much of what I've shown you today has come from this book, The Cash Flow Quadrant. After this presentation, get on Amazon, go and buy a copy of this book, or do it on Audible, get a copy of this book and start to listen to what Robert Kiyosaki said in this book. This is the book that changed my life beyond all recognition. Okay. This is the book that made it happen for me. And the reason that you want to be on the right side of the quadrant is simply this, because you need to build your own dreams, or someone else will hire you to build theirs. The person that you're working for right now, if you have a job, is hiring you to build their dreams. I'm always reminded of the business owner that turned up in a Lamborghini, and his employee said to him, "That's a nice Lamborghini, boss." And the boss said, "Yes, and if you work twice as hard next year, I'll get another one." Build your own dreams, or someone else will hire you to build theirs. Decide which side of the cash flow quadrant you want to be on. That's all I have for you today. I hope that's been useful and inspiring to you. I'm going to thank you so much for your time, and I'm going to hand you back to our genial host, Richard. Thanks very much, guys and girls. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ray. Brilliant training. That last bit about the Lamborghini made me laugh, I have to say. Yes, I mean, it's something that, you know, Robert Kiyosaki talks about. Poor people buy stuff, rich people buy assets that pay them again and again and again. And one of the reasons why he and many other entrepreneurs, Richard Branson is another that recommends network marketing, is because it's a realistic business for people. There are so many advantages in network marketing. We don't have any overheads, we don't have employees, you can work the business from home, which of course right now is really important with regard to the virus. I've got a team of 46,000 people and I've not met one of them personally. It's all being done online like this, which is a fabulous part of the business. But it's a business that you can start off small. I have a friend of mine in the business, John. He is a window cleaner, and he started his traditional business as a window cleaner. It cost him £3,000 to buy the water softeners and everything else he needed. Another £8,000 to buy the van he needed to be able to drive around in. And then it took him 5 years of hard graft to build up an income from that. So that's what a traditional business is. You compare that with CFX, you can start for $300, that's it. And then you can go out there and build a multi-million-pound business. And he started with $300. In 6 months, he's already equaled the income he's making from his traditional business. So this is the great feature of network marketing, is you can start off small and build up from there. But again, this is something I'm always going to stress. You have to treat the business like a real business. It's so easy to get to the end of the week and you haven't done anything or made just a couple of phone calls or whatever. That's not building a business. For John to build his window cleaning round, he had to be out there leafleting, getting referrals, working, advertising, etc. So he was treating his business, as a real business and working really hard to build it up. So you've got to treat the business the same way if you want to be successful. It's a great leveler, this business, and it's up to you as an individual to go out there and make it happen. Now, one of the things I just wanted to finish off with is I was on a call the other day and someone mentioned that they've been using the Power Build system and they hadn't had many responses yet, this, that, and the other. It's so important to understand that this is normal, okay? In the business, as you grow it, you're going to have periods of flat spots where you are not achieving much success. When I first started my network marketing career, it was a disaster for me. My warm market literally rejected me. Admittedly, looking back on it, I approached them incorrectly and that kind of thing. But, I really got nowhere with my warm market. So I had to go into my cold market. I had a very strong why. I really wanted to get out of the corporate world. And so I just started sort of thinking, okay, and I started reading books, again, along the lines that Ray was talking there, educating myself on the industry and the mindset and everything else that I needed. But I also started thinking out of the box. I started looking at the business as a business and saying, right, where am I going to generate leads, for my business? And I came up with all sorts of ideas and schemes. I purchased leads. I did things through recruitment agencies. I did so many different things. Everything I could think of. I was constantly thinking, how can I generate leads for my business? And there were lots of dead ends where it didn't work. It might have cost me money that didn't pay off, etc. But I was persistent, and it's that persistence that you've got to look at. So yes, you are going to hit roadblocks like that, where things are, particularly if you're brand new, you're going to have that. But again, if you had a traditional business and you weren't getting customers through the door, what would you do? You'd be looking at ways of advertising, doing all sorts of things, putting things on Facebook, putting things out on Google, etc. Just treating it like leafleting, whatever it takes to get that footfall through the door. And it's the same thing with this business. You just got to keep doing that. Treat it as a real business. Treat it with urgency. That's the key. Create that urgency. And again, I see it again and again and again with successful people in the business. I was talking to a new director last night, and he was saying, I couldn't believe where he was in the business right now. He started off 6-7 months ago, and he introduced a few people who introduced a few people, and now he's a director. And so that's what I see all the time. But the key difference, and it's the key thing that makes people successful, is that they are on it and on it and on it. They're treating the business seriously, and they're working on it all the time, as you would, and it's worth the effort. This is the key thing, because you are building an asset that's going to pay you again and again and again. And as Robert Kiyosaki says, you make your money in network marketing, and that gives you the money to then invest in assets, other assets that are going to pay you again and again. Buying houses, buy a house outright. Now, if you're new to the business, you may think, oh my goodness, buying a house outright, I'm never going to be able to do that. Well, yes, you can with this business. We're seeing this now. There's going to be top leaders in the business that are going to be making unbelievable sums of money, and thousands of other people that are going to be making life-changing money as well. And you can use that money to buy assets that are going to pay you and secure not only your future, but your family's future as well with this business. So as you know, I go on about the due diligence on this project. It stacks up every which way. No guarantees in life, there never is, but this company looks like it's set up properly to be around for the long term, and therefore you can put the effort in. You can refer people with others to other people with confidence, particularly when we get the copy trading. And imagine, as I said, that product's going to be amazing. We're getting that in the next few months. So you could position yourself to change your financial future. And as I said, do read those books, because having this understanding, it's like a veil's lifted off your eyes, where you suddenly go, oh my goodness. I was from the corporate world, and I was earning, I think it was well over £200,000 a year income from that business. I had a brand new BMW M3 company car, very nice. All my expenses paid, everything else, and lots of incentives, etc. So that was a very good sort of corporate career, particularly back in the early 90s. But the fact is, every year I just felt this was strange, because I was having to start all over again. If I spent that money, it was gone. And of course, at the time, I was buying a lot of stuff. I didn't really understand that. If I look back now, if I perhaps put the money into property and stuff, it would have made such a difference later on. So, knowledge is everything. So I went into network marketing, and I started learning. People were telling me what Ray has been telling you today: start becoming educated about finance, learn how to have a money-making mindset. And if you can do that, you will change your financial future. So this is such an important training session. So I hope you found that useful, guys. And once again, thanks for coming on the call. And we will be doing the same thing next week. And have another fantastic week, and enjoy your weekend. So thanks for coming on the call. Take care.